welcome to Our Town, the first Our Town program of the year 2024, which seems like a good time to look back on our city over the past year and look ahead to what's coming this year. Well, who better to get an update about the city than to talk with Mayor Todd Coppernoll. Well, we're in the mayor's office and there's Mayor Coppernoll, and we are going to take a look back at 2023, maybe take us through the year, what happened last winter, last spring, in the summer, in the fall, leading up to now.
Sure. Good morning, Dorothy and Ben. So in 2023, some of the major happenings in town, obviously, Dorothy, nearest and dearest to your heart, is what happened with our campus. And that had a profound impact on city operations too, because it's not a small thing. And it was a very strange dynamic for the city because we're being told through Platteville from Madison that they're moving classes, but they're going to stay sort of, but there's not really a plan. You've been through this. You both know this. Mm-hmm. Well, we were told that too. And I worked with the county trying to communicate, and then the county still is trying to communicate with President Rothman in Madison and working on what to do now with the campus property. That had an impact on everybody in town. And we did everything we could, as you did, as so many other people did, but as we've found out now, it's pretty obvious what the plan was in the first place. When Tammy Avedovich, who's the interim chancellor over at UW-Platteville, called and said, this decision is made and will not be reversed, it seems as though that was the truth. Okay, and now we've seen what's happened. It's coming in Fond du Lac and Washington counties. They've been told that their two-year schools will have the classes moved off. It's the same process we had here. And now you've seen the job cuts at UW-Oshkosh and UW-Platteville. So now we're at the four-year level. And Dorothy, you were here a couple of weeks ago. Howard Markline and Tony Kurtz were in town for a listening session. And you heard Tony Kurtz say it wouldn't surprise him if there are no two-year schools left in 5 years. So this is a plan. This is obviously well beyond Richland. When the state elected officials are telling you this is the likelihood in 5 years, the UW system, which is now the Universities of Wisconsin, is being redrawn, reimagined. I don't believe all of the four-year schools will survive this. I don't. We happened to be first, which is terribly unfortunate. Loss of a resource that had helped so many people for generations. 10 of my family members attended that school. My mother has a master's in education that started there. My uncle Bernie Manning had a 40-year career as an engineer at IBM that started there. I get it. I think everybody who could did everything we could, and we still got where we got. That had a big impact on what we did down here, and it's still, the county folks have their hands full, as you know, with what to do next. So that was really that was the one really heavy thing that happened in the year that made everybody unhappy. And honestly, thinking back on it, whether city, county, or just the people in town, I don't know that there's anything else we could have done because they made their choice and they brought it to us. So, okay, so there's that. What we did get done, so we got the last lots in the Wedgwood neighborhood are filled with new homes now. That's a positive for the city. You saw that the building was completed that now houses Dunkin' Donuts, AT&T, and TriStar Gifts. Big win for the community for multiple reasons. That's 3 new businesses we didn't have before, but it's also a taxable structure which helps every property taxpayer here. It's another contributor that helps run the place. So that lot was annexed into the city, which it hadn't been. The construction was done, and the 3 businesses came in. Now that whole thing was done without any taxpayer money. That's just a local entrepreneur that made the decision that he would do that. So that's a win all the way around. And you saw the anticipation to get those businesses open. People really like that. There's some new restaurants in the downtown. Pine River Smoke Company has opened, TKO Barbecue. RC Tacos is doing very well and will be announcing a new location for themselves very soon. I don't know when they'll be doing that, but very soon. They'll still be in town. They'll be in a different spot. So we saw some of those family-owned businesses in the downtown doing well. We saw the expansion at the Richland Locker, which has gone very, very well for them. They are utilizing what had been the Fastenal building, which they own now, and that took them longer than they wanted it to because of all the supply chain mess and the sharp increase in costs that the pandemic brought. But they got that open, and that's been very well received by our people. This is a bigger deal than people think, and it's not the big headline grabber, but we got a community resource police officer in the Richland Center High School now. And think of it this way, in the athletic conference that Richland Center belongs to, we were the last high school that did not have one. Some of them have full-time, some have half-time, but they all had one. I don't think I need to explain in too much detail why it's needed at this point. It disappoints me that, I guess I would say, society or the world has gotten to the point where when I was in high school, we didn't even have locked doors. And now we have a police officer behind the locked doors. But we can't be naive. We just can't do it. And so the decision was made to do that. And the key point there is that Steve Board from the schools and Aaron Unbehind from the school board came to us and proposed a joint venture. So the school district is actually paying about 70% of the cost. So it is a police officer, a city police officer, but it's jointly funded. And it's because the schools knew that was the limit they could go to without raising property taxes, which is why that was the number. And they came to us and said, can you help with the rest of it? Well, we did have the money. Same thing, we didn't have to raise taxes to do it either. And the early reports back from staff at the high school, students and their parents, this has been a great move. And I'm very pleased that we got that done. You know, sometimes the things you get done are exciting and new. A big new building, some fun new thing coming to town. Everybody was Dunkin' Donuts, right? Or, you know, and people were excited, and I'm glad. And I'm glad they're here. But for the long-term future of this community, I actually think that community resource officer is a bigger deal than that donut shop. Because you're talking about our kids, and you're talking about our educators, and their ability to do what they need to do. For the kids to learn and feel comfortable in the environment, and for the staff, frankly, my mother is a retired teacher, for the staff to feel as though they've got the support they need to do what they do every day. It's very demanding. You know, try to take, if you've ever raised a kid or even babysat for a while, try doing that with hundreds of them. And then all the rules that are put on you in public education now. So this was a great move for the city. Okay, and then as the year went on, we had some opportunities start to come into focus that hadn't been there. So the whole time I've been mayor, we've worked on housing. We know it's a critical need here. We don't have enough housing here for any income level. We could get more residents here just moving out of mom's house all the way to doctors. And the problem we've had through the years, our terrain gets in the way. Our beautiful hills, which are our calling card, make it hard to build here. And then our Pine River, which is a great source of recreation, a great natural resource, but it also makes floodplain. If you have a bunch of floodplain inside steep hills, available land to build on is a scarce commodity, and that's come up over and over again. And as the city for the last few years has attempted to talk to landowners about possibilities, it's been a series of no, this land's not for sale, or maybe in 20 years, these things. And it's really caused a bottleneck. Well, okay, so the Panorama Estates apartment project, that's the one across from the campus in the high school. It's a 3-building project that got started when Paul Corcoran was here and then Mike Kaufman. And the first building, of course, was constructed with 45 units. Well, then what happened is the family involved had a personal issue to get through with one of their kids, significant, caused a delay, perfectly understandable. And when that was done, interest rates went from 4% to 8% in a big hurry. It caused another delay because it simply was not economically possible to construct the building unless you want to pay over $2,000 a month rent. It just couldn't be done. So it slowed it down, caused a lot of frustration for all of us because we need it. Well, what's happened in the last few months is that group has added some more investors. They've got more money to work with, and they are working with the city on a plan that potentially, hopefully, will get the second and third buildings built simultaneously in 2024. We're reviewing financials. We're being responsible. We know it's the people's money too, okay? And we know it's a critical investment in the future of the city. You're talking about 90 additional apartments. I don't know that that's ever happened here in one move.
Probably not for over a century or two.
So yes, and people talk to us all the time about the population barely moving in 50 years. Well, this is how you get past that. And if the financials check out, which we will know very soon, this will be before the city council, perhaps in late January, if not in February, for their decision. And we believe, right now, we believe we can get this done again without raising property taxes, which is the goal. If we do a tax increase, it needs to be as small as it can be. Right now, we think we can do it with no property tax increase, and that's what we're trying to do.
Well, that would be a win for everyone.
It would be a win for everyone. 90 more homes without hitting everyone in the pocketbook to do it. Look what that does. More people here means more workers here, which we have a shortage of. More customers here to keep our businesses going. You know, eventually maybe more kids in the schools with the state aid that brings. That's a big deal too. So we're working hard on that. This one is separate from the city. It's the school district and the county. But I'm going to point it out to lead to the increased collaboration that is now taking place between city, county, and schools, which I think was needed too. A few years ago, relations between the three entities were terrible. Very little communication and really some unpleasant conversations sometimes when it did happen. Well, we all represent the same people. So when I became mayor, it just coincided with Marty Brewer becoming county board chair, and he and I made a commitment to start trying to bring the walls down and get the city and the county working together for the people we represent. And since Steve Board became the school district administrator, he has joined the party. And he's been willing and open, and the school board president, Aaron Unbehound, and the city council president, Ryan Cairns, the city administrator, the county administrator, everybody has said this is a great way to go. Let's work together. And one example of how that happened, in December of last year, I just called an impromptu meeting. I called Marty Brewer and Steve Board, said, why don't you come and sit with me? And we sat in that conference room on the other side of that wall. And Steve brought Aaron Unbehound with him. And we sat in there and we just had a brainstorm session. You know, what are we working on? What do we see? And of course, Marty, this was right after the campus news first broke. And that's really what we were reacting to. It was a wow, you know. And Marty started talking about, we don't know what we're going to do if they actually leave here. What do we do with these buildings? And oh my goodness, it's very expensive for the county to maintain Dorothy. You worked there forever. And East Hall came up, and the reason it did is because Mr. Steve Board said we'd love to have it for a charter school. I said, tell me about that charter school. Well, it's an opportunity for kids who aren't necessarily going to be college bound, who aren't really interested in those other careers, who can learn things that they need to know for what they want to be. We know we have open enroll in Wisconsin, and we know when kids leave our district, state aid leaves with them. Causes the funding problem here, and that leads to property tax increases again. So when Steve said, what about that? Marty said, let me take it to the county board and see what they think. And I said, I love it. And I said, what about Jefferson Elementary? And Steve said, if we get East Hall, we won't need it. And I said, let's get something done there too, because that is a city block in a residential neighborhood that is not taxable because it was a school. But it's being underutilized. It was only using 3 classrooms for Head Start. And in the middle of a city our size, we can't afford to leave it that way, and neither could the schools to maintain it. So the end result, which took months, you have to follow the rules, get through committees and so on. Well, now the school district does own East Hall, and the charter school is open. And it is increasing the enrollment in the Richland School District, which is increasing the state aid that they get. Okay, and then the school district sold Jefferson Elementary to Mr. Kerry Norman. who's working on a plan to develop that. Most recent conversation, the likelihood is apartments. And again, a very needed resource in a residential neighborhood. Apartments fit well. And if we get this all done, which I think is coming here, you have your charter school in a building that was already there, right? That needed a new use. You have Jefferson being converted into something else, which will give more people a home here. It makes a whole city block taxable, which again helps everyone else. And that happened because the county, the school district, and the city got on the same page. And we've put a lot of effort into that, and now we're getting results. And again, that's not the big headline grabber, but it's impactful.
Yes. I think so many times people don't realize how much just conversing, knowing, thinking with each other can lead to these really good ideas.
Yeah, Dorothy, isn't that the truth? And it's the same in your household, it's the same in a friendship. If you're not talking to each other, people drift away.
Yeah.
And that's what had happened. The county kind of said this is ours, and the city kind of said this is ours, and the schools were just doing their thing. And I don't mean everybody that's ever worked there or been elected, I don't mean it that way, but on the whole, I don't think it's a secret that that had been going on. And it's not now. Do we agree on everything? Of course not. We're a group of people. That's not going to happen every time. But are we getting results for the community? Sure we are. And I expect more. We're working together now, trying to formulate a plan for the Simon Center. And when I say we, I mean the city, the county, and the schools. And it's the same approach. We don't have the answer yet, but we're going through ideas. What about this? What about that? And I believe we will find an answer, and it's because we're all working on it. Yeah. Okay, since I became mayor and before, when Mike Hoffman sat in this chair, I hear grocery store all the time.
Yes.
I've tried to explain it over and over again. I do believe we'll get another grocer here. The reason it's taking more time than people want, we are one small city in a small county, and we have a Walmart. And for those who say we don't have a grocery store, trust me that the grocery industry will tell you, yes, we do. And it's called Walmart, and they have mammoth buying power, which means they could price a small store right out of business. They've done it in other communities. I talked to a grocer in a neighboring town, one of the small towns that does not have a Walmart. And he said, we'll never go into town with a Walmart. We tried it, and they priced us right out of business. That's a big obstacle. The other thing that happened, when Ed's Family Foods was purchased by Quick Trip, the building was demolished, right? And when Gordy's left town, the ownership at the Richland Square moved Tractor Supply in there. So what we don't have is a facility ready with freezers and coolers and a loading dock and all of the things you need. So to start a grocery store here, you have to build a new building or revamp one. The point is, millions of dollars would be invested before you even open the door, and you would have debt service on that construction, loan payments, like a mortgage, while you're competing with the pricing power of Walmart. And what that has done is that scares away, like a Piggly Wiggly or an IGA, that level of store. They just say, we can't do that. So we did talk to Hy-Vee, because they're rolling out a store called Dollar Fresh, which is a small town footprint, but they haven't brought them to Wisconsin yet. So we're not even eligible. The point is finding a grocer with the staying power, their own size, that could compete with Walmart pricing and be here for 20 or 30 years. I continue to work on that. I've got the economic development director, Jason Glassbrenner, helping me on it. I can't give details. It wouldn't be the right thing to do, other than to say we're making some progress there. I'm not promising anything. There's a lot of work left to do on it, but the conversation has changed with a couple of grocers from you're too small, which has always been the thing. They've always said you don't have the traffic count. Some of them are starting to say, you know what, we need to take a different look. And what did that is two things. Nationally, crime's way up in the big cities. You see it, all the smash and grab and all this that's going on. Corporate America's tired of it. And also we've seen just cost increases. Just being in big cities is harder to do than it was for businesses. So some of these corporations are willing to look at smaller communities than they had been, frankly, because there's less hassle. Okay? It's easier to do business in a smaller place for some of these people. Well, the other thing that happened Richland Center has changed the narrative. We're reaching out. We're trying to get businesses here. We're trying to get homes built here. We're showing some initiative on growth. And they've noticed. And they've said, yeah, we see it and we hear it. And it's a different culture there than it once was. And we agree. And so a clothing store is talking to us and a grocer is talking to us. That's as much information as I can provide because we're not far enough along to know that they're going to happen. There's a lot of steps in the process. But what the people need to know is that the interest is legitimate and sincere. It's moved from you're just not big enough for us to, you know what? Yeah, I think we kind of want to be there. Let's talk about this.
Well, and I've read about cities since the pandemic and people working at home. There's just a lot less traffic, a lot less people in the downtown, so that they may be looking for a place where there's more traffic.
Well, they are, and a lower cost of doing business. Now, what's happened, so you remember, Dorothy and Ben, and I do, when I was growing up here, Highway 14 East was 2 lanes with gravel shoulders, and the traffic count was fine. It could handle it with 2 lanes. Now we have 4 lanes through there, and we have people that tell me they hate to turn left coming out of any of those businesses because of all the lanes. It's twice as many lanes and a turning lane. So, in other words, the traffic down 14 has grown exponentially in the last, say, 40 years. Well, that's what attracts these businesses. They want to know there's going to be enough people seeing them and having easy access to them to make it profitable to come here. What's happened is, with building costs going crazy, which they just went nuts. They just, in the last 5 years, they just hit the moon because all the supply chain stuff, you saw it, inflation blew up. So building materials went sky high. The cost of land went up. Labor costs went up. And then when interest rates went up, the cost to borrow money followed everything else higher. And at the same time, every element of a building project is at a high price. So that has caused an issue. It's why it takes as long as it does to get some of these things done, because the first thing they say to a city is, we need money from you. What's happened is neighboring communities are giving it to them. There have been cities that bought land, put infrastructure in. What I mean by that is utility hookups, and gave it away, which was unheard of in the past. Other thing, Baraboo has committed to a massive building project for apartments, 1,100 apartments in the next 4.5 years, which they did with tax incremental financing over there. That's huge. That's just, I mean, we're talking about, if they get 2 people per apartment, they're talking about bringing in 2,200 people, which for them represents something around an 18% population growth. Well, that's a huge, huge investment, and I haven't even mentioned what that's going to do to their infrastructure costs, police and fire, garbage collection, plowing streets. It's what it might do to their school district. And watch this, it'll cause a referendum when they need to, as they have more kids, and they weren't ready for that. Point is, they put the money up. They stepped up and made a choice. Said, we're going to go for population growth, and we're going to do it with these apartments. And they're using multiple contractors to build them. Mauston has some stuff going on. Holman does. Several communities, even Little Chaseburg has a very aggressive plan down there. I don't know that we will model ourselves after any of them, but the people need to know to get some of these bigger projects done in the area that we're in. Every one of them that comes down here, they're not asking for little money. They'll say, I need $3 million. Well, we didn't suddenly run into $3 million. So we're being very deliberate, very responsible. Choose wisely. If you do it, be careful. Make sure what you're doing is the right project to choose, and make sure that you're being thoughtful of your taxpayers. People don't like it sometimes when that adds to the time frame, but people would like it worse if we made a bad choice.
Now, you mentioned Highway 14. Last summer, there was quite a bit of road work in town. Some major improvements on 8th Street, up by the Story Field. There was a lot of infrastructure.
True. We did that. Now, in the last few years, we've completed the Hazeltine Street project. Okay, not just new pavement, but storm sewers. You remember the Hazeltine River. For those of you who might remember, they used to put walking bridges instead of fixing the problem. We fixed the problem. The water's gone off of there now. We right before it, when Paul was mayor, they did West Side Drive. Same thing. Should have been done long before it was, but it got done. We've done Larson Street, Schmidt Street, Jarvis Street, 7th Street, the top of Cedar, the top of 8th. This year we'll complete 8th, going down further, putting in storm sewers that were never there and always should have been. It's ruined the pavement over the years. You just huge rivers of water every time it rains. And in the wintertime, that stuff would freeze right in the intersections and there's just ice everywhere. We're fixing that. The water main at the top of 7th and Cedar had 21 clamps on it, Dorothy. Every winter, because it was worn out. So that's fixed. New sewer laterals, okay, all of this stuff. We've invested in infrastructure. We're making the place better for our people. We've also done 1-inch pavement overlays on about 20 different streets in the last few years, with more coming, because we know when we all got down here, we saw all the potholes. Well, you don't have the money to resurface everything. It costs a fortune. So do what you can, and we've increased the budget for 24 for more overlays. So several more city streets will get fresh pavement on the top, the ones that are still strong enough. And then you mentioned Highway 14. We have finally gotten a commitment from the State Department of Transportation. They will resurface 14 from Bowman Drive to County O in 2026. Okay, it took forever. They wanted to come out in 24 and do a 2-inch overlay over that broken up pavement. And I'm telling you, with that terrible base of broken concrete, underneath all that truck traffic, that would have been a horrible mess, and that pavement wouldn't have lasted more than a few years. And the DOT's rule is, when they touch a street, they will not touch it again for 8 years. So we would have just gone from a mess to a mess with a delay. And we just kept calling back and explaining, and they finally sent a new group out here. And as soon as they saw it, they said, we have to fix this.
It's really bad.
It's really bad. It's been really bad for several years. DOT's own words, that pavement has an expected lifespan of 20 to 30 years. It's 36 years old. They shouldn't have done this. But at least we're off that. And on to thank you, because they're coming. It's going to be 26. I get it. People wish it was now, but we have the commitment. They've been out here. They had a public hearing, and the public came. Several people asked questions and got their answers, and they've explained. They'll resurface it, new storm sewers, new guardrails, and in the turning lane, they're going to take all of the islands out. So that whole length will have a turning lane to ease some of the congestion. Like if you're turning to go up to KFC, you won't have to just use that little spot. The whole thing will be open down by the Starlight 14. Same thing. It'll all be a turning lane to ease the traffic flow out there and get us better pavement. So that's a big win for the community too, even if it is coming in 26. All right. So that's kind of the biggest things we've worked on. I want to make sure the community knows this too. The state did a very good thing for small municipalities and small counties this year. They amended the state revenue share program for the first time in years. They had cut that and cut that, and our county, a big reason why they'd been fighting with budget deficits and having to borrow money to pay the bills was because over years the state was actually sending less state aid to the county than it had been. In a time where you see cost run-ups, they got less money. There's only one thing that can happen. Less money, more bills. You have to cut things, and you have to maybe borrow money. Well, the state, with bipartisan support, which is why it got done, the Democrats and the Republicans finally said, yeah, we got to fix this. So our county got $800,000 more than they were getting. And they passed their first balanced budget in years. And the city got about $300,000 more than we were getting. And this has happened all over the state. And what they did is they took, as we all know, the state collects 5% in sales tax. They took 1%, one of those 5, and designated it for this. So it's tied to inflation. So costs go up, tax collection gets bigger, and that money gets bigger to go to the small counties and small cities to help us match that when it happens, so that we don't have to borrow money, and then there goes your property taxes again. So thank you to the Republicans and the Democrats who worked together on this. What a concept. And got it done because it had an immediate impact. The county, as we heard the prior year, maybe we'll cut this, maybe we'll cut this, maybe we'll cut that. Well, most of that didn't have to happen now. And over at the city, we actually just passed a city budget that left more than $150,000 on the table that by state law we could have taken. What I'm telling you is we didn't need the money. We're running a tight ship right now. We left more than $150,000 in the pockets of our people because we didn't need it. So rather than just saying, let's buy this with it or let's build that with it, we said, with all this inflation going on, our people need that money. Leave it with them. A few years ago, that was simply unheard of. We were struggling to keep the bills paid. We actually had more money than we needed, or could have had. So we left it with our people.
What is the ballpark figure? What does it cost to run the city?
That's a great question. Well, that fluctuates like crazy. It depends on what you're doing with street projects and if you had to buy a dump truck and all these different things. It can be $7 million, it can be $9 million. It's several $1 million, okay, depending on what you decided to do that year. And then the state has very tightly defined rules, the tax levy limits of how much money you can tax your people based on the values of the properties in the town. So you start from there, and those are hard set at the state. The only way that grows is new construction. The term is net new construction. If you don't get new buildings, you don't get new money, which made it difficult in small places. You know, Madison and La Crosse, they just built. We don't. And they had frozen those levy limits in place for in excess of 10 years while they had cut state aid. So you see the challenges. You see why the county got where it got. They've relaxed that with the change to the revenue share. So by contrast, the county budget is in the neighborhood of $30 million. So you see, and we're a small county. Mm-hmm. You see how much money it takes just to have police and fire and to do all the roads. Road pavement and maintenance is a huge expense now. Okay, and it doesn't take long. That's why every year you have to really do a strict budget review. You know, if you buy a piece of expensive equipment, what we very often do, we'll save for that for a few years. You know, because you can't try to take that out of any given year would blow the budget up. That's how the fire department, we bought a new fire engine a couple years ago. It was about $630,000, and we did it with no tax increase at all. And the reason that happened, it was just saving over time. We've had to do that. We've done it. We've done it to pay for road projects. We've done it to buy a dump truck. You know, some of this equipment is hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it doesn't take long. When Marty Brewer told me at the campus, heating and cooling, the campus buildings, just heating and cooling, $114,000 a year. Wow. If you don't do any of this, if you don't become an elected official or you don't work in the treasurer's office,
you don't think about it.
You just don't see those bills. $114,000. And that was just heating and cooling. We didn't do anything else. Mow the lawn, fix the roof, plow the snow. It's crazy how fast money disappears. You know, and so fortunately, both at the city and the county, we've got some really, really good people in the right places who are kind of watchdogging the money here. And you're seeing the results of that. You got a balanced county budget, and you had the city saying, hey, we don't need everything the state says we can have. So I'm really proud of that, and we all are down here. We've really tried hard to toe the line on property taxes in the city, because we know that our taxpayers are supporting the city, the county, the school district, Southwest Tech. Any one of those entities does a tax increase, it hits all of us. And we've seen that with the school district and the county, so we've tried to counter that by being frugal. Well, now, here comes some home builders, maybe some retailers. Here comes opportunity. Dorothy, I want to make sure people hear this. This was just good luck, I'll admit that easily. A lot of our people will remember Bob and Rosalie Wheat, who lived in the community for many, many years. They're both gone now. They owned a bunch of land out in the Allison Park area. If you know where Rainbow Drive is, it's up in the back, kind of headed up the hill. On the other side of the hill is the campus. Mm-hmm. Rosalie passed away a few months ago. Well, before that happened, obviously, in August, Rosalie sold that land to a man named Mike Lamont, and Mike is from the Baraboo area. And I saw the real estate transfer. I thought, I wonder what's up there. I don't know Mike Lamont. I wonder what he's up to. Well, he walked into Ryan Cairns' insurance office because somebody told him Ryan's on the city council, and he had a woman with him named Ellen Davis. And they said, Mr. Cairns, I'm Mike and I bought this land and I'm going to build houses in Richland Center. And Ellen said, and I'm a business associate and I'm going to help him sell those houses. And Ryan called me and said, get down here. And I did. And we sat together, and it turns out a lot of our people will remember the name Jim Harris, who was a football coach here for decades. Mike Lamont is Jim Harris's brother-in-law. Jim's widow, Jim's wife, is Mike's sister. So Mike has a long-standing tie to our community, even though he's not from here. So he has a sentimental spot, and he is a home builder by trade. Ellen Davis's parents were Bun and Phyllis Keller. If you are old enough to remember, Bun was a postal worker here for years. He delivered mail when I was a kid to the house, and Phyllis ran Burnham Jewelers downtown, and Phyllis just passed away about a year ago. And Ellen, when I walked in the room, I didn't know who she was, and she said, I used to live next door to you on Ward Street. I said, you what? He said, you were a skinny kid, about 14, she said. I said, Ellen, that lived on the corner of Ward and James. She said, that's me. She said, I moved to McFarland. I want to move home. And I'm going to help Mike, and I might just buy one of these homes and come back here. So 2 people from here, ties here, stepped up and said, let's do this. So right now, Mike's helping his sister move into the house Rosalie had. So they bought that. And Mike is going to build homes, so he says, this year on the 2 lots next door, because they're ready to go. And then the plan is over the next few years to get 20 more up into that land that Reed's had up behind there. It's in the early stages. There's a lot of planning and thought. Again, when it'll get done, into what detail, we don't know yet. You know, how fast and all of that. They already own the land, and the electric and the water are already there because the Wheats had started the project at once in the past, or had planned to. Sewer's not there, but it isn't far away, and then the big cost will be excavation and a street up there. Again, it's way too early to put any timelines on this, but that's their plan, and they're here. They've already invested in the land. So we're talking about Panorama Apartments, 22 houses in the Allison Park neighborhood, which neither of those, Panorama was bottlenecked a year ago, and that land was sitting. Yes, we're talking to a clothing store. Yes, we're talking to a grocer. We're working on a potential new hotel in town. We just did a hotel feasibility study, and the group that does this for a living says Richland Center absolutely can handle one more. We have changed the dialogue. We have changed the narrative from how come nobody wants to come here to how do we get them done, because now they do want to come here. It's going to be about the money. It's going to be about responsible stewardship of this community so that nothing we do puts an undue burden on the taxpayers. Balance what we can get with how we can pay for that. But it should be an exciting year. This should be a fun year in the city. Some challenges, they're big decisions, but if you could choose having the problem of nobody calling you or having the problem of too many people calling you,
It's a better problem.
we're in a better place, Dorothy. On that side of things, and now we just need to sort through the opportunities and get some of them finished, which I believe is coming. So pay attention to the city council agendas when you see them.
And there will also be an election.
There will in April. Yeah.
Do you foresee a lot of changes?
Well, for most of the city seats are unopposed, so we have 4 city council seats up, as we always do, and there's no opponent in any of them. There will be 2 candidates for mayor, myself and Karen Tapley. I've been mayor in my 2nd term after having been an alderperson, and Karen is an alderperson of multiple terms. And the 2 of us will both be on the ballot, so the people will have a choice there. And of course, with the presidential year and the primaries and all that, I'm sure it's going to be a wild year, but locally, the big decision, of course, is going to be the mayor's office. And of course, the county will have several county board seats changing over as well. So a lot of changes, no, in terms of people. The one change, potential change is here, It'll either be me still here and Karen would still be on the city council if that happens because she has another year on that term. Or if Karen is elected mayor, then there will need to be a new older person found for her seat because she'll be over here. But you know, I support it. I believe in elections. I believe in the voice of the people. That's the whole. It's one of the main reasons this country took off in the first place. Why our ancestors, I mean, let's be really honest, they did a great thing, have done a lot of great things founding this country and growing it, but to be blunt about it, most of them were fleeing where they came from because mostly they didn't like the government there. And the reason they didn't like the government, of course, is they didn't have a voice. All the whole thing, taxation without representation, and you had to belong to the king's church, and all these rules in all of these other countries. So people came here and said, let's have the people choose, you know. We the people, let's have the people choose who will make the decisions and who will lead. Well, I still believe in that. I do. It's crazy sometimes, you know. We see different candidates on the national scene and we all shake our heads, but it's a better system than I see anywhere else in the world. And here, so the people have asked me how I felt about having an opponent in the election. Why not? It's what we do in this country. It's what we do in this city. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us a look at all, and it's a lot that's going on in Richland Center.
It is, and it's fun. It's challenging. It's a lot of work, but we really have gotten to a new page in the book. When I first came in this office, the people who are now engaged with us wouldn't take our calls, wouldn't call us back. We weren't big enough. They didn't believe Richland Center was sincerely interested in growth. They were worried if they did invest here, there wouldn't be growth and they might not be profitable long term, all of these things. Well, they've stopped saying those things to us. Now it's how do we get it done and when can we do it? So I hope that this next year this really could be a fun year for the city. You know, regardless, it really could be bringing things I know the people want. So, thanks for coming in here and asking me these things. Anything else I could answer for you?
No, that kind of seems like you've covered a lot of territory.
I have. Thank you,
Thank
Dorothy.
you.
Thank you, Ben, as well. Thank you.
Well, we hope 2024 will be a good year for you and for the city of Richland Center. We hope you'll come back next week and every week to watch our town.